Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Brave Cat here once again with another Frontier Signals update. So we've got some things to run over here as we have a near X-class flare that pretty much just happened actually. But other than that, things have been a little bit more quieter than they were a couple days ago. And we do have Comet Pan-STARRS just now leaving the chronograph images here. So we can see that, and there doesn't look to be any potentially Earth-directed CMEs right now, nor has there been for the previous events, so that's, pretty lucky actually, considering there was quite a bit of activity. And you can see the comet, it appears to slow down drastically at the end here, but so does the timestamps in the video also slows down, so I think that just has to do with the video. But that's going away, so hopefully things quiet down a little bit, but we can take a look at the sunspots. And things are relatively complex here magnetically. Mostly this sunspot group right here. All these sunspot groups, they're numbered, but I guess I'm not that advanced yet. I don't know what number is what. But this one in particular has advanced quite quickly. Actually, I'm going to try to find some footage of that because it's kind of cool. Alright, well, I tried looking for it. I should have bookmarked it, but I guess instead I'll just kind of have a couple of other little things here. So this is a view of the magnetic field, and this is more, it's not like an empirical direct observation, it's more of just a model. But, it's the most recent coronal hole stream hitting Earth, kind of hits it in waves. And it's definitely pretty interesting to see how the magnetic field actually reacts to these events. And then the other thing I had up here in the old bookmark section is another really good post by Craig Stone here. So basically relating different ocean, parts of the ocean, so like structures, geological structures, and how that relates to the potential of the turning of the Earth itself. So I believe really in this last paragraph here, the resulting structure is compatible with frameworks involving large-scale redistribution of mass under changing rotational conditions, where processes such as partial core mantle decoupling or transient reorientation of the rotational axis would naturally produce redistribution of the oceanic bulge, spatially structured relative sea level change, and preferential pathways governed by global geometry. So there's a lot more to this. I'm going to have this post linked in the comments. It's another observer replying, quoting a post from Craig Stone, so I'll have this in the description so you can read it for yourself. But it's, kind of like more evidence that there's been, drastic changes on Earth, and there's a lot of that stuff. So definitely something to keep an eye out, and definitely, well, for me at least, very fascinating and, very interesting. But other than that, though, we don't have too much besides there is potentially another coronal hole kind of opening up way north on the sun. So even when it does, kind of face the central region, it's going to have a kind of lesser impact. But we do have another smaller coronal hole here that is now pretty much facing us, so get a little bit of something from that, but not really much. So a couple of things to go through before I cover the earthquakes here. First off, just a little bit of entertainment. This is a YouTube channel I found that, if you, just need a laugh or want to see what, I guess, peak Gen Z humor is, I would check out Wizards with Guns. Definitely some pretty hilarious stuff there. And then the other thing, kind of opposite of that, is shouting out solarkillshot.org again. There's some pretty good classes / courses going on and being created right now, so involving homesteading and survival skills primarily. Very good space. Again, there's so much support on this forum and this community in general. Knock on wood, but there has been a couple of instigators every now and again, but overall it's it's been good, and that is really the main reason, the only real reason why it is a paid forum, because it really cuts down on the trolls, on the bots. I mean, there is no bots. Again, knock on wood. I tend to jinx things, so hopefully that doesn't happen, but let's get into the earthquakes here. So there was a fresh 6.1 here, not really super shallow, 81 kilometers depth, so there wasn't really too many felt reports, even though it was technically on land. So, no damage or nothing like that, I don't believe. But, we definitely see still some reverberations happening from that larger earthquake that struck near this area. And that is going to continue to influence what we see going across the plate. So, we can see sizable earthquakes have an impact on either side of the Pacific or other large distances. But when we see, lots of activity going on kind of more, specifically up here in the North Pacific, these plate boundaries are a lot more connected, a lot more direct. So we could definitely see some influence going on over here. There has been a bit of a swarm going on up here in the Alaskan island chain, and continued stress going down into the west coast. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more 4.0 activity, somewhere in the States, in the the central and kind of eastern region. But so far things aren't looking too bad. I pulled up the tremor map, but I didn't actually say anything about it. So we do have a slight uptick once again in the tremors. 150. It's not really that much compared to what we saw over here, for example, 790 in just one day. But it is all coalesced right here up in the very north, up in Seattle. And well, yeah, that's pretty much what we got going on there. There's not really a whole lot, but again, things could change as well. And going over to Europe here, this seems to be the other kind of main hotspot, just kind of like Japan is right now, except a little more, I guess, different. So this ongoing swarm down here in the south between western Turkey and roughly this kind of Greece area, in between the other two previous swarm points, still has an ongoing swarm, and it looks like it kind of picked up here. And I think the largest one in the last, well, roughly the last 24 hours here is not too big, so just it's kind of down to threes right now. But something to, I guess, start to try to analyze a little bit, because we just keep seeing these earthquake swarms kind of change locations near this general area. And this deep 4 here is from yesterday. My dog is tap dancing in the background, so let's try to finish this up here. Nothing really too notable on the Italy specific earthquake feed. There was a 4, but it was all the way up here, and everything else is pretty nominal. Even the activity that's going on near Campi Flegrei, 0.1, 0.2, extremely small tremors. So really nothing to write home about. Whole bunch of nothing burgers going on over here for now. But again, if we see all this stress happening in the plate down here, that could eventually translate to what's going on potentially over here, as well as the deep earthquakes. So let's see, to wrap things off here, looking at the volcanoes for today, the only really, not really notable per se, but the one on here that hasn't really been on the list consistently is Messiah, I'm not sure how to say that. It looks like this one hasn't really seen activity, or at least hasn't been on this list for about 2 months now. And it does seem to have regular eruptions. So the last time was 2012, and there's quite a lot of data there going back. So nothing too out of the ordinary, but it hasn't been on the list in a couple months. And other than that, everything else has been pretty much the same old stuff. Continued ash plumes coming out of Fuego, Santiaguito, Dacono. Well, that doesn't have, yeah, it does have an ash plume. and, you know, Sangay, Reventador, you know, all these regular volcanoes still doing their thing. So, you know, we don't see anything that hasn't been on the list repeatedly. So yeah, I think that'll wrap things up for today. You know, a little bit short and sweet, and, you know, a little bit of you know, recommendations there. But, you know, so anyways, hope y'all enjoyed, got some out of it for today. Please like and subscribe for more. Share this video if you dare, and as always, I'll catch you all in the next.